Hi, I'm Saïd Khadraoui, currently the representative of the European Environment Agency in Brussels and also the institutional expert of the agency. Previously, I was a member of the European Parliament during almost 11 years, between 2003 and 2014, and afterwards an advisor in the European Commission's in-house think tank on sustainability issues. And the last 2 years, actually just before I started at the agency, I was a freelance advisor, including a special advisor on the European Green Deal for the Foundation for European Progressive Studies. So the European Environment Agency is actually the knowledge hub of the European Union on climate and environment. We provide sound information on the environment and on climate to policymakers, to those who prepare legislation, those who adopt legislation, those who implement legislation, and also those who evaluate the impact of legislation. And we do so by working together actually with a broad network of institutions and research hubs at the national level. We call it an IONET network. As well as administrations who monitor the quality of environment, for instance, of air and water and the greenhouse gas emissions. And we have experts really who try to translate the data into something that makes sense for policymakers. You know, the European Union is a complex animal. With many important players. But before saying something about these players, it's important to understand that every 5 years there's an important moment, the European elections. All citizens from throughout Europe are able to elect the members of the European Parliament. And this moment coincides actually also with the start of a new Commission. For instance, last time in 2019, Ursula von der Leyen became the new president of the Commission. She needed to convince the Parliament to support her. In order to do that, she came with what we call political guidelines, with the priorities for the next mandate of 5 years. And as a result, the European Green Deal was actually positioned as the flagship initiative of the European Union for the mandate between 2019-2024. Well, I would say environment is one of those key issues that have been identified in the European treaties. And according to the treaties, we have a number of objectives, including a good environment, because we believe that this is important. And the procedures to get to some rules, of course, for this type of issues can be different than, for instance, for foreign affairs, where you have other types of instruments, less legislation, but more enabling instruments, financing instruments, diplomatic tools, to reach your objectives. But in the field of environment, we work still a lot with legislation, even though the Commission and the European Union as a whole have other tools at our disposal, including all kinds of subsidy mechanisms, or using the European Union as an enabler in a way, funding research, for instance, in the field of climate and environment, making sure that new technologies can help us to accelerate positive developments, or bring the right people around the table and agree on the way forward, for instance, regarding industrial policies, or even bringing stakeholders at multiple levels together, including cities, to make sure that we make improvement on environment and climate. It's obvious that the European Union has changed over the years, not only in the way it functions and and the number of bodies and agencies that have been created over time. I mean, I think we have about 40 agencies like the European Environment Agencies, also on other fields. We have a medicine agency, we have a food safety agency, we have all kind of agencies that are supervisory authorities in the banking area, etc. It's fair also to say that in the field of environment, things have also changed a lot. Because today, environment is not any longer a kind of a niche issue that is only being dealt with by environmental experts. Somehow it has become a cross-cutting issue, very much linked to the society, to the social dimension, to the economy. And with the Green Deal, this has been really positioned at the core of what we do. And this also implies that, for instance, the European Environment Agency interacts with many more stakeholders compared to previous years in a way. If, let's say, 10 years ago, our main interlocutors were Director General Environment and Clima, today we have to work with many other people because climate and environment is about everything. And that makes it a bit more complex. It also implies that, also in institutions, in the parliament, in the council, more other people that are experts in other fields, in social dimension, in economy, in foreign affairs, are also working around issues on environment and climate. That's clear. So the European Environment Agency is an independent European Union body, right? An agency that is not based in Brussels. The headquarters is actually in Copenhagen, in Denmark. And this singularity applies also to all the other agencies. You have agencies in Italy and in Hungary and throughout Europe, basically. They are all out of Brussels, but they need to interact with the institutions in Brussels, of course, because it's there where the real decisions are taken, and where the Commission is based, and where you have the Parliament, and where you have also the meetings of the Council representing the Member States. So we need to interact with these people. As I said earlier, actually, we need to interact throughout the different steps of the process, from the start of a legislation up to the implementation and even beyond, when it's going to be monitored what we have achieved and reported and evaluated, so that maybe later we can be helpful in preparing a revision of the legislation to make it better, to improve it in the future. And so our role is the role of somebody who is helping out in a way with our knowledge the institutions. So as I said, we provide information, knowledge, help for the Commission to be able to prepare good drafts. But then it goes to the Parliament and to the Council, and their experts also need to get support, information, background on how we can, make the best type of regulations for Europe on environment and climate. Well, the challenge is always to make sure that the right people know you, and that somehow you develop a smooth relationship, because there is always a tension between the European Commission on the one hand and these decentralized independent agencies. The Commission wants them to do what they want, but of course the agencies are also independent. So how to find the right balance is always an important issue. And in order to improve the relationship, you need to speak a lot with each other, make sure that we understand each other's position, and that we avoid misunderstandings, basically. It's very difficult to have to give a fully fledged answer to a question around how to improve the relationship, because each agency, each EU body has a different role. They may also have different tasks. They may have different powers. Like the medicine agency, they are the ones who actually decide what type of medicines could enter the European market. We don't have such a power, right? What we do is to provide knowledge. We have more soft powers. We help member states to monitor the quality of the environment and climate, and we interpret this, and we use our expertise to make sense of it, to explain what's happening, and explain how we could improve the environment and climate. Come up with recommendations maybe, sometimes also behind the scenes, not to make it public. And so every agency has a different role, and so the way they interact with their Commission counterparts can also be very different. So it's very much sui generis. But what I see in recent years is that because of the fact that we are in a kind of crisis modus all the time, there are always new challenges coming up, and therefore also new tasks given to the European Union to solve these issues. We are kind of struggling with this ever more complex environment of more bodies and agencies trying to solve parts of the problems we are facing. To make it more concrete, what we do is just to give you one or two examples. We are currently explicitly mentioned in the nature restoration law that has been launched just a few weeks ago by the European Commission, and that basically has as the objective to oblige the member states to restore nature, because we believe that together with the Commission, member states, Parliament, that we need to do that in order to safeguard biodiversity in Europe, which is a big issue, and we need to somehow value more nature and the ecosystems, and how nature can actually be beneficial, not only for people because of the quality of life, but also for the economy. And that it's very much interlinked with other challenges, climate, global warming, and of course the unsustainable resource use. And all these things are interconnected, and these ever more complex linkages, we need to understand that better. And so our role is to provide the knowledge to understand the interconnections between all these challenges. And in this particular case, help member states to achieve the nature restoration targets. And so we will have teams in place that will help them to define these areas and to come up with practices to restore nature, basically. Another example is our role in climate. Just 2 years ago, the European institutions have adopted the European climate law. This was a revolution because it sets in stone the ambition to become a climate neutral continent by 2050 and to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 55% by 2030. And on top, it was decided to create an independent advisory body. It's called the Climate Change Advisory Board, and it is supported by the European Environment Agency. We provide a secretariat for this board consisting of 15 super experts from all over Europe, and they will, in the years to come, closely monitor where we are regarding climate, whether or not we are achieving our ambition, and what we should do as a society on a number of areas to get there. So that will be interesting to follow in the years to come.